We're catching up with Ryan Hill of Hill Family Estate, and there are plenty of producers that provide tasting experiences in the Napa Valley. Very few of them provide 3 of them, and none that I know of in a secret garden location. Hill Family Estate. Ryan, it's great to finally see you again.
Welcome back.
Post-COVID, things are blooming, literally and figuratively. So I always want to start out with telling people and orienting them where we are. So give us a kind of a Google Earth aspect of where we are right now.
So we're at the secret garden location, smack dab in a residential area in downtown Yountville. This is a farm that was developed a long time ago, back in the 1950s. That was taken over by my godparents, Peter and Gwenny Jacobson. Although for a lot of the Hill Family Club members and people that are familiar with the brand, it's referred to as Hill Family Farms or the Secret Garden.
I like the Secret Garden. And you've been coming here since you were a little child.
A knee high.
A knee high.
Yeah.
And it probably was the first place where you got indoctrinated into the cycle of life as it relates to plants and farming and that whole mission. So kind of weave that into how you approach the winemaking at Hill Family Estate.
Yeah, so very lucky to have a godfather who is carrying Peter Jacobson. He's a master gardener.
Okay.
He saves teeth for a living. That was his day job. So he was a dentist in San Francisco during the week, and then on the weekends he and his wife Gwenny would come up here and they started farming organically before the organic thing was a buzzword.
Right.
So they were always good stewards of the land. They have an 1.5 acre oasis here, and what they found themselves doing when I was a young kid is growing things and realizing that they could fill the trunk of their BMW, start in Yountville. At the time, Trevino was in St. Helena, being run by Michael Chiarolo. And by the time they got to Trevino, they sold everything that they had put in the trunk, and then they'd spend all the money they made at his restaurant. So Thomas Keller learns of this little garden back in 2000. He established French Laundry, I believe it was 1994, and he wanted to work in exclusive with Peter and Gwenny. And around that time, Peter started growing things specific for chefs and their tasting menus, and a lot of the chefs would come here, and so I had this education that number one was derived from nature, but really evolved from them and the conversations that they had, and Peter including me.
And just being a sponge.
Yes.
And so that unique, I guess, growing up, childhood, learning experience of being in the garden and on the farm, how did it foster a development into wine or a passion or interest in wine?
So we always grew up farming here, but my dad was a grape farmer. He started in Napa Valley in 1979.
Okay.
So I grew up in a household where it was always about grapevines, but we never made wine. And it wasn't until about my junior or senior year of high school that I took a job as a busboy at Bouchon Restaurant. And it was, a Tiger Woods chip shop from where I grew up as a kid. And so when guests from all around the world would come in and I'd be clearing their plates, they'd say, "Wow, you live in Yountville? You gotta be in the wine industry." No, we're just farmers.
Right.
And so upon graduating high school in the year 2000, I approached my dad, Doug, and said, "Dad, you're growing grapes for 40 different wineries. Why don't we make wine for ourselves?" And so in 2001, the wine division was born.
Okay.
And I spearhead that, and then Dad continues today to spearhead growing all of the grapes. But the garden is a nice tie-in because after all, it's called food and wine.
Yep.
And so the two just have created a perfect synergy together.
And it's interesting too because you talked about the uniqueness here in the garden, the Secret Garden, and then the wines that you produce, you also don't produce mass production. You have small, limited production wines very similar to this. Was that intentional?
So we started with a vineyard designated Merlot from the Beauterre Vineyard and a blend called Origin. And what we realized is my dad really liked what Setui had fostered. Now he got grandfathered in because he's got a full-blown deli. You can do food and wine pairings. But what he liked is that at Setui there was an array of different wines. And that model played to what we had in terms of vineyards, because as a small family business, we own and lease 12 unique vineyard sites.
Okay.
We're in the hillsides, the valley floor, the benchlands, but we also specialize in a lot of different varieties. So Dad was growing grapes, we had them available, and the joke now is that we make everything from A to Z because we produce an Albarino and a Zinfandel.
You too are actually helping brands get started. So talk to us a little bit about how you made that decision and who your first brand is.
Yeah, so when it came to collaboration, one of the things that I realized early on is that there are a lot of entities outside of the world of wine that wanted to be running in the world that I evolved in. And so what I found is that creating synergy with these entities, the first one was a professional surfer named Kyle Knox. We decided to stain his signature surfboard in wine, and we made a wine called the Barrel Blend. The name serves as a double entendre. You surf in a barrel, wine comes from a barrel, and that was designed specifically to attract millennials to our portfolio of wines, because I think the opening price, Martin, was $19.99 a bottle for a Napa Valley blend.
Wow.
Which was unheard of at the time.
Yeah, still unheard of.
Yeah, but working with Kyle, featuring a different photograph of him surfing in a barrel on that wine-stained surfboard every year, it was just a lot of fun. And what I found is that those that were in the culture of surfing all of a sudden had an attraction to wanting to try the wine, which brought them into the wine side, and they learned about Hill Family Estate. And we've worked with professional baseball players, we've done football players, but I think the longest standing relationship that we fostered is with Nikki and Brie Garcia, formerly known as the Bella Twins.
Right, so you've got baseball, surfing, football, and now wrestling.
Ex-wrestlers.
Ex-wrestlers.
Yeah, they just retired. They're now full-time moms. So they're momming very hard.
Yes.
But continuing to dive into other ways to enhance their umbrella of what they're involved in.
And so I like the fact that you're shepherding them in that process, because everyone thinks making wine is easy, and technically it's much easier than selling wine. But they could have had their choice of any type of price entry point, and they wanted to do it right. They wanted to have quality fruit and do it from start to finish, and you're actually helping them make that dream a reality. No, it's perfect, and it's really a compliment to you, Hill Family Estate, your godparents, for allowing us to be here today. And speaking of that, should we take a stroll through the garden?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Out of all the experiences Hill Family Estate provides, the Secret Garden experience is absolutely the best. You will learn all about this full cycle of life, the produce, where it goes in the restaurant community, and there's edible flowers. Thank you for all your support.